Let's kick it off. Hey, welcome to Weekly Update, episode 87 for December 29th, 2023. Yours truly, John Shealy at the helm, because nobody else wanted to help me out and do this job. Starting next week and through April 12th, I think April 12th, whatever that Friday is, we will have the weekly tax update moves to 5 p.m. So first, because I think more of you want to join at 5 p.m. on Friday. And second, I have two different coaching groups, one at 1 p.m., one at 3 p.m., that we accommodate questions and answers for on Friday. So I have to accommodate those folks too. My bio, still on demand, one of the best programs we've run this year. Maybe the best program that AJ didn't do, right? Was Tax Office AI, Rise of the Machines. If you don't know a lot about ChatGPT, Hector Garcia, who of QuickBooks Online fame, very big in the QuickBooks YouTube space, smart man, presents a very, very basic, easy to digest class on use of AI in the tax practice. If you're a subscriber, it's included. It was great to get him to do this, and I think that you should take advantage of that class while it's available. You should start doing like Netflix when we go on and it says leaving December 31st. I wonder how we go watch something because it's leaving December 31st. Weird Science, Ethics and the Misuse of AI, to free IRS ethics. Take it this weekend, get credit for this year. Take it next week, get credit for next year, whichever you need. Don't take it twice. You can't get credit for the same class twice. At least you shouldn't. You can get it, but the IRS might not like that on your renewal. If you are not currently a subscriber, we welcome you to become one. 25 to 30 hours of new content available every month. And I think it's a great value for what you get. I mentioned previously the coaching group. So this is tax season support. For $997, you can come to 45 opportunities to ask a tax question. It's done in a group session. It's on video. It's recorded. You can either email your question in early. You can ask it live on the air. Or Big Marker does allow us to turn on the microphone, turn on the camera, and you can come on with us. Or alternatively, you can use the Q&A function, type in your question, we pop it up on the screen, and then we have a discussion. Depending on the session and the day, you'll have me and Ellie Jones, me and Rita Ryan on the international program, and I have a rotating group of other guests for the other days. So the times and dates are here. Fridays, this group meets Fridays from 3 to 4:30 Eastern time. It does say Eastern Daylight Time. We mean Eastern Standard Time. Tuesdays at 7 to 9. And then Wednesdays, 7 to 8. Generally, those will be international questions only. And generally, we won't have international questions the other two meetings. This is by, over the last 2 years, requests of other group members. And I think it works better for everyone to be able to do that. So we still have a few spots open, $997 if you register this weekend. $1,097 space available after the 31st. Upcoming programs, as you can see, form a bunch of 50-minute programs coming up in January designed to address those things I meant to get around to learning about in the off season. So we've thrown a whole bunch of things up, a refresher of depreciation, and reading the tax code, both by Donna Byrne, retired law school professor. She does not speak over your head. I think you will like both of those programs. Ellie Jones is doing basics of research, both where to do free research on the internet, how to do research, whether it's a paid tool or a free tool. And she's going to throw a little bit of prompting of AIs in there towards the end. So all good programs. Everything we're doing is good. The pay as you earn pen to paper. That's Rita Ryan doing how to do an 1116 foreign tax credit for your client who has a foreign pay document. And she's doing screenshots the whole bit, taking it very slowly. Rita's also an attorney. I think she does tax work in a large tax practice, and she does a great job explaining these things. So we'd love to have you in any of those programs, please. Upcoming events, IRS webinars, January 10th on due diligence, sailing through the rules of refundable tax credits on January 12th. both 1 credit each. Again, IRS and no cost, so they might be good refreshers for you. I stuck this screenshot up there from the registration page. Frank Agostino's preparation for the U.S. tax court exam does run technically over 2 years. So we are back to Introduction to Criminal Tax Part 1, which is this January. Even if you're not going to take the tax court exam, you will get nuggets of knowledge out of every program where Frank is the speaker. It's free, 3 hours of free material from Frank. You can watch it online. We're happy to be his sponsor to get this out to people online. We get upwards of 400 people watching the program, which to me is phenomenal. If you want to come to Hackensack, which is in New Jersey, it's at Bergen Community College in Hackensack, and there's free pizza. So what more could you want? Free dinner, free class, hang out with Frank. Now, I found this interesting in going back to giving you the numbers are published again for the IRS inventory. So I want to start speaking about that again. But taking a look here, I found it interesting. There's now a web page, and I gave you the link to it in your handouts in the resources Word document that will tell you what they're working on. So if you click through, they are presently processing 1040 returns submitted during December of 2023. They are working on amended returns submitted back in July. Now, the one thing that bothers me about that is that that means those are returns that are still electronic, and various parts of the IRS computer systems are down. So I don't know how much access or work they actually are getting done, but this tells you where they are. Same thing on business returns. They're working on December original filed 1120s and September amended returns. 941s, they're working on December 2023 submissions, except for ERC, where they are looking at October of 2023. And you can see where they are with 1041s. There are other pages. Something important for me is W-7 applications, and they are working on those submitted during December 2023. I thought it was pretty good when they got it down to November when they were only 1 month behind. That is about as current as they are going to get. And that's a place that gets like literally a million submissions a year in a former Walmart in Austin, Texas for processing those things. So good for them that they are that caught up. But if you need to know how far behind they are, gee, I submitted something in August, shouldn't I've gotten that amended return yet? Well, the answer is no, they're only processing July. But you can go and take a look. And I think that this is super useful. Now, back to our volume with what's going on. As of December 9th, there are 686,000 1040s, 600,000 of which require error correction, 844,000 amended returns. Well, we saw they're processing the ones from July yet. Good Lord. 941 inventory of only 44,000. Now, that makes sense because we are at the tail end of the fourth quarter. So they should either be processing early submissions, all those zero returns for Q4, or wrapping up Q3 submissions. So that's great that they're down to 44,000. 941X in excess of 1 million. Well, that's what happens. They haven't processed any returns since they announced it in September. They probably stopped processing them before that with the announcement in September. And now various programs are out right now. And I see Kansas City has a fenced atrium with stacks of past year returns. Yeah, we know what's going on. All right, victims of identity theft. I just wanted to share this. They do update this for you, but the average is taking about 480 days. I want to say that back during the summer to tax season to the summer, it was just shy of a year at 360 days. I understand how bad this is, but the issues, that's outrageous that it's taking on average. So that means for every one they wrap up in 90 days, there's somebody out there that's taking 500 some odd days to clear up. This is insane. I don't know what the government can do to make it any better. Yeah, Henry is saying here, February of 2022 for ID theft claims. Yeah, that fits, Henry, right? The average number, right? All right. So for those of you, we've had a lot of folks calling here, panicking over credits. So I want to remind you, if you're not an enrolled agent, you don't need to worry about how much IRS CE you have unless you're an EA or an AFSP, right? You just renew your PTIN. For those of you that are in fact EAs, even if everything hasn't posted, if you've taken your credits, the renewal isn't this week. You have till March to get the renewal done. But it's about 15 minutes to renew the PTIN online. Your PTIN does expire December 31st. It's easy enough to renew it late. Plenty of us have done that in the past. Don't do a tax return before you renew it. If you forget to do it and the system is down for a day or two, don't do a tax return, right? Wait till you have your PTIN back. Non-refundable PTIN fee is $19.75, which is supposed to be the actual cost right now. Henry is saying 2020 and 2021 CP2000s were rolled out the end of 2023. You have to remember that 15%, AUR only works 15% of its cases. So it's just amazing what cases they choose to run, but that's a presentation for another day. It's faster to renew online. Paid return preparers can also renew with a W-12 and mail it in. I wouldn't do anything on paper if I could avoid it. Same thing. And if you do have to do it by paper, certified mail return receipt requested to prove the date you sent it. Have not heard problems with anybody renewing online. EA renewals, if your social security number ends in 7, 8, or 9, or you don't have a social security number, if you're a non-US person who is an enrolled agent, you need to renew now, January 31st. So the sooner you can, the sooner you should. Pay.gov, go to form 8554, fill it out online. It works very well. Before you go there, I would, click this EA renewal reminders list. The big thing you need to have, aside from a copy of the card, so you know your EA number, you need to know how many credits you took each particular year. First, because they ask you to fill them in. Second, they ask you to attest to it, including the 2 ethics CE. So take a quick look at your, log into your irs.gov/PTIN account. Look at your look at your credits, and then jot down those numbers so you enter them correctly. Collection notices have started already, but they are going to be in full pre-2020 mode starting in January of 2024. I want you to think about that. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. 4 years. 20% of an employee's career, right? IRS was kind of closed here on some of this stuff. So, and I know I mentioned this last week, so I won't beat it up, but automated lien and levy are back. Your clients who have slacked off and ignored their notices need to stop. I got to get with Jessica and Mark. Maybe we'll do a roundtable to talk about ramping up for this stuff. I couldn't get a lot of traction from some of the speakers to do this, but I think we need to talk about it because the crap hits the fan in the middle of tax season with people who owe money, and we want to be prepared to help them as best we can. So initial notices, of course, have continued to go out. So your 2022 CP14 notices just rolled like they were supposed to. So LT38s, taxpayers with long-standing tax debts who haven't received a notice in over a year are going to get a refresh. They're going to start the process over and say, hey, by the way, you owe us this $2 million? They're going to send that out. Now, what's interesting is I didn't think to stick a slide in here, but you've probably started seeing these notices. The Treasury is going to give away another $1 billion of penalties from 2020 and 2021, primarily because since the notices were on hold, they're acknowledging that, maybe people didn't realize that they owed money to the government. BS, right? But this is why collections and other things are down, because folks, in fact, weren't paying attention, weren't out there, and weren't constantly being coddled. When they had 30 days to reply, then 60 days before that notice of intent to levy, folks were a lot more attentive. And Henry is saying it's about clearing the books. I had that argument with a prominent tax attorney the other night. I said, I agree. This 5.4 million, I think, is the number of people that owe $1 billion. What if only 1 million of them, when they got that next notice that said pay up or else, all went to a CDP hearing or all wrote a letter and said, I don't owe this. and called up and said, give me 180 days to pay, and sent in a letter, I don't owe this, that would just grind the system down. And I have to be honest with you, we got a whole slew of letters the other day, and of course, some of them, the clients got them before I did. So, $70, $35, and they're like, what is this? And it's like, well, it's that little bit of penalty because you didn't pay with the return, or you filed in July and paid with the return in July. So you have a small underpayment penalty. They're now forgiving those underpayment penalties. Now, it doesn't help that they forgive my 2020 underpayment penalty, but I owe for 2021. So they're sticking that onto 2021. I should say not underpayment, my failure to pay penalty. And they roll that over. So it's creating a bunch of confusion from people. We're trying to very quickly, using tax help software, when we see this come up, send them an email. Hey, you're going to get this letter. Here's what it means, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of extra work, but that's less work than the phone blowing up. All right, enough of that. Again, I'm not going to bother you with this just other than because we did this last week, other than to remind you this stuff is coming. So TIGTA is joining forces with the TSA, and they are going to come in and do the scans on all the pilots before they get on the planes. No, that's not what scanning pilots means. Pilot, of course, is a prototype program run by the IRS, and you will remember that the goal of TIGTA is both to make sure the IRS is doing their job, and when they are doing their job or running a new program, to make sure that it's being run correctly or effectively. Are we getting the results we're supposed to? Is anybody slacking off? So presently there's 3, and a copy of this is available in the handouts. So there are 3 pilots right now: a lockbox pilot, scanning as a service pilot, and submission processing modernization. And boy, they love their acronyms, right? So there were less than 35,000 paper forms scanned as of June 30th, 2023. Not a great start. But a statistic that was not available is how many paper returns are still filed these days, especially if these were all 2022 returns. You're penalizing practitioners, and many people are using, they can use their darn phone, right? Many people are not doing paper returns. So if 35,000 returns represents a large percentage of what was paper filed, that's pretty good. Again, it wasn't made available, that number. Scanned returns have include Forms 709, 940, 941, and 1040. Now, I'll remind you that 940 we talked about a couple of times over the summer because the IRS was touting this as their big success. And to their credit, it is one of the simplest forms that's filed, right? So what they did was they scanned those forms in, and rather than reinvent the wheel, they wrote a little utility that converted the scanned data into an e-file, and the IRS e-filed the returns to themselves. And they all went through flawlessly, and they thought this was a great thing because they no longer need to paper process a 940. They can scan it in, and it's electronically submitted. So they're seeing success here, and I think that's a great thing. Now, what I found funny here was, about this slide anyway, was the IRS, the image here on the left is evolution of scanning as per the IRS. They dreamed up their digital strategy in 2020 as they were crawling out of the collapse of their system of paper and working in the office for 2 shifts and nobody works from home. They talk about this taxpayer advocate directive. You'll remember Aaron Collins was demanding that Commissioner Reddick immediately begin scanning. And Bob Kerr and some others came out and said, you've got to be kidding. They're not set up for this. The technology doesn't exist, and you can't spin around on a dime and start doing something. Well, 15 months later, they are scanning. They're beta testing paper returns, and it works. And they are on target here for 2025 to scan 100% of returns. I think they're going to do it. Now, of course, 3 years, 5 years here to get from here to here. That's about how long it took us to get from there to there. So anyway, so IRS is below the target for scanning. Millions of individuals, they wanted to have millions of returns done by the end of 2023. Well, they're going to be 2 years behind. So they were able to scan 527 709 forms, 503,940 returns, that were sent to the lockboxes, right? That's when you have a payment included. You send it to the lockbox, not the service center. That's awesome. So not mentioned is that the lockboxes are all run by Chase Manhattan Bank and Bank of America. So it's not clear to me, are those institutions also processing the 940s now? I think they are. Even better, right? Get that out of the government's hands. 941s, they were able to process 201,000 via lockbox. Awesome. And then, as we said, those 34,000 tax returns, 1040s that they were able to scan. So they're also testing modernized paper processing systems in 2024. What will this mean? It's an integration of artificial intelligence and the existing recognition technology. So I would think that the AI is going to help it make a guess. If it sees a J, a letter it can't recognize, HN, it's going to say, is that likely John or Jan, right? And figure it out. But we'll see what happens. They're here with the government. They're from the government. They're here to help us. I watched Catch Me If You Can the other night, and Tom Hanks. It's funny because what's his name? Who was the star of it? That would have been a Tom Hanks role 20 years before, right? Now Tom Hanks is playing the elder statesman. He plays the buffoon IRS, FBI agent. He works for really works for Treasury, but they called him an FBI agent, and it was pretty funny, right? So, one thing that TIGTA has cited is the IRS is supposed to have a centralized oversight for the digital transformation as they move from paper to digital, and they don't. I didn't get a chance to dig through it. I think that's in the Taxpayer First Act that they're supposed to do this. Yes, thank you. Leonardo DiCaprio, Rose. Yeah. So I think that they are supposed to, Taxpayer First, it's mandated in the law. They're supposed to do this, and they haven't done it. At least as of June, they hadn't, and they've been cited for it by TIGTA. TIGTA agrees. Yes, we're supposed to do this. IRS agrees. Yes, we're supposed to do this. We are going to do it. We agree with you. All right. So what's the outcome? TIGTA is recommending the IRS evaluate benefits, challenges, and costs of each of the pilots. Well, without busting chops here, I don't see how, even if it's costing them more money in the short run, how a complete transformation to digital and no paper is going to hurt them. Personally, I think we shouldn't be allowed to mail in any paper, just like they're doing a 1040 pilot. All of these things should be set up in a pilot so you can key it in. You have to prove who you are, use ID.me, all that good stuff. But let's get away from paper and push it all off on the filer, right? Especially, I think, if you make all these filers have to manually enter it, most of them are going to start to use an actual payroll service, a Gusto, a Patriot, or something, and will completely reduce not eliminate, but greatly reduce the errors that are being made. IRS agrees with TIGTA's recommendations here, and implementation plans are set before the 2025 filing season. That's another year, right? So that's kind of like the beneficial ownership. Yeah, it's a law today. You get a year to comply with it, right? All right. Okay, so now the other big TIGTA study that came out this week, impact of management action and staffing challenges during the pandemic. So there's a whole bunch. Reading this thing, man, it's like reading Army doublespeak sometimes, or Pentagon doublespeak. And they don't mean it to be that way, but it just turns out that way. And again, these are well-written audit reports. All the abbreviations, designations, TIGTA explains everything out. TIGTA is Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, by the way. ACS, we know, is Automated Collection Service. Those are the people that send you a bill. LOS, Level of Service. And whenever something is negative, they give it an acronym, right? The LOS went down. Okay. TDI, Taxpayer Delinquency Investigations. TDA, Taxpayer Delinquency Accounts. So pausing collection notices and suspending ACS call site workdays during the pandemic impacted ACS productivity. Virtual training and telework during the pandemic may have also reduced productivity. So what they're saying is we were able to pivot eventually, and that took us time to get people set up, to get them able to use the system, to train them. So we lost ground to hopefully be more productive and ultimately gain ground. So this was pretty cool. A bunch of these pictures I'm going to show you. So IRS notice enforcement suspensions, and this puts a timeline together. So these couple of things I'm going to show you here were actually on one page in the Take to Study. So March of 2020, we know ACS stop sign stops doing liens, levies, delinquent tax investigations. Stop, right? Because we just can't be doing that when we're telling people to stay home. We also stopped mailing notices, stat notices, 90-day notices, everything stops. IRS wasn't open anyway, right? So they had two problems. The incoming mail was stacking up. We also had those pictures of Fresno with 18-wheelers that parked in the parking lot full of returns. And we also know that there was nobody answering what was coming in. And because of the way the machines work, they generate 1 million notices a week at the IRS, automated notices. They're generally generating them 3 weeks in advance. So they had like 3 million notices there that needed to go out. Not a good thing, right? That's why for a while in June, when they opened back up, you got stuff out of order. You got stuff with weird dates because they were just pushing everything through. June, the stat notices came back. October of 2020, tax delinquency investigations opened back up. Manual liens resumed. That means a revenue officer had the ability to lien you and file a lien. And then notices, regular notice streams started to resume in November, not necessarily for all the back work. January of 2021, manual levies resumed. So now we can levy a bank account. TDI creation, though, the delinquency creation was suspended again because they weren't doing so well with the mail. They also had that allegation they destroyed 20 million documents, right? Automated levy resumes in July finally, but we haven't really seen a lot of these. ACS systemic levies and systemic liens, that 90 days, boom, time to lien you. We didn't see a lot of those though, right? The automated stuff kind of went away. Again, so manual levies, moratorium on manual levies stops in December because it stops every December. End of December, it comes back on right after Christmas. And they do that every year. It was no big deal for COVID. January of 22, systemic levies are resumed, but only for 5 days, and then they turn it off again. Why? They weren't liking the results. Systemic liens, TDI creation are suspended in 2022. Non-stat notices in the notice stream are suspended. Now, rumor has it the IRS was afraid that they didn't have enough call center people, right? They had reduced, they had people retire. They couldn't replace people. They were trying to, but they couldn't. You didn't have the new call centers online. You didn't have Mississippi Delta, and you didn't have Puerto Rico online yet. And the fear was that we're going right in the start of tax season, like they're doing this year, they would inundate everybody with notices, and it was just going to blow up. So they didn't do it. So in the Take to Study, staffing challenges and high balance due call volumes contributed to the decline in level of service from 40% in 2020 to 35% by 2022. Now, the only thing I want to add to that, though, is, wait a minute. We said all these people were ignoring their bills. Make up your mind, right? But they were. So ACS supports efficiency is going to decline here, right? Significant decrease in the closure rate. I've got a graphic coming up from 18 and 19 to the 20 to 22 era, right? In other words, the 2 years immediately before the pandemic as compared to what they're calling the pandemic, they saw a decrease in closure rates. Declining trends in level of service. Every level of service metric dropped. Now, keep in mind in early 2020, people are working from home. The IRS is woefully behind. And they've got some subset. I didn't get my FOIA request back, but some subset of their call centers have been allocated out to FEMA. Because remember, the IRS does not have their own call center. FEMA can unilaterally say, we need 1,000 people that are cross-trained today. They flip the switch. You come into work and log in. Hi, you're working at FEMA today. And off you go. Level of service dropped from 40% to 35%. I think that's number of calls they're answering. Staffing calls, high balance due call volumes. Why do I owe? All right. ACS inventory work days were suspended. So apparently they had days where Staff is off the phone and all they do is work, right? The idea being move cases along, get cases closed. While we want to help taxpayers and we want to resolve phone calls, we have this goal everywhere in the IRS. I have to move this many cases, right? This many cases by month, quarter, year, whatever it is. So starting in March of 22, they said, no, all hands on deck on the phone. So they had a 48% increase in call site full-time equivalent people since pre-pandemic 19. They had a decline in delinquent return dispositions. They've got more time on the phone because they're not doing work days. Well, what was the result? Less work got out the door. And they're surprised. All right, so I gave you this graphic just to show you, right? So here's the inventory at ACS, and inventory is down, but closures are down. So of course it makes sense the inventory is down. We're just not working as many cases. Ending inventory is down 64% from the end of 18 to the end of 22. Tax delinquent accounts, people who owe. Inventory is up, right? I mean, it was at 296 in 18, 203 here. Ending inventory 22,000, ending inventory 12,000. But what's happened is, look here, we went 296, 282, 181, and we go up to 194, up to 203, right? So we're up, depending on how you look at this metric, right? But we are down a third from here. So these are things that they're concerned about. Also, these are millions of people, I think, too. So there was a problem early on that they still haven't resolved, I think, that automated underreporter. These are the CP2000 people. I'm sorry. It's ACS. That's a typo. The ACS folks still. Different managers had different interpretations of what work could be done off-site. What's a portable work in their terms. So differences here in work processes and what they allowed people to do home differed between the support sites. That's not good. So telework studies were conducted, but ACS support employees and taxpayer satisfaction weren't looked at. Okay, so we didn't. What did they survey? Right? We did a study of what's going on, but we didn't ask the employees, do you like it? How are you doing? How could we do it earlier? And we didn't say to any of the customers, any of the taxpayers who called up, hey, your guy was working from home. Did you notice a difference? Were you satisfied? Do you care? We didn't ask any of that because, it didn't occur to us here at the IRS to do that. There's a question, can we get copies of slides? They are in the handouts and they are shared, so you should be able to get those. So the question here is, is this available? So two things. So one, anything you saw here, if it was a tip from a TIGTA study, I gave you copies of the TIGTA reports. I gave you copies of the slides. If it was the IRS numbers, I gave you the link to go find them yourself in that Word document. There's 2 links in there for resources, so you can pop in there and get everything. So we give you everything that we're doing here. None of it's really proprietary. TIGTA made 4 recommendations to the work from home study, and IRS agreed on all the recommendations. In other words, you need to capture some more data. You need to do a better job. So they did. Just to share a few more slides. All right. Here's their staffing slides. Now, this is interesting. Their goal for fiscal year 2022 was 2,033 people. They did add 1,181 net hiring, and they had some transfers. So the net hiring into ACS was 1,350 people, 1,315 people. But that's short about a third of where they needed to get, right? So even, this is a scary number. So if our new employees are 1,315, I don't even need Henry for this math, and our ending balance is 2,618, what does that tell us? That the majority of the folks there, half the folks there are new. The other disturbing thing is, if you look here, we hired 70, 269, 150, 402, 1181. So 22, 25, 27, 2,800 people. We only have 2,600 here. So I would venture to say a large number of the people that are working right there now are new, are brandy new in ACS. Not a great thing, right? And you can see here separation. 249 people that were there over 5 years left. 215 people went to another department. And then folks that were here for less than 5 years, 482 people. Ouch. Yeah, not the easiest place to work, maybe. U.S.-Hungary tax treaty has ended. We knew that was coming for about a year and a half, 2 years. The big thing is that they've released the dates now. So it doesn't have any effect after January 1, 2024 for both income tax and other taxes. So if you have any clients in Hungary or they're doing anything, you got about 2 days if you want to take advantage of the treaty to get something done. I discovered the hard way that EIN service is down. It went down to, it's down from December 27th. So that means it went down Tuesday at about 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's it. See you next year on Tuesday, hopefully on Tuesday. As we know, sometimes when they promise that, it doesn't work. Code Section 1, the Internal Revenue Code, talks about taxation of dividends. And so notice 2024-11 tells us an update to tax treaties to meet the requirements of 1, little h in a bucket, 11 in a bucket, big C in a bucket, little I in a bucket, Roman numeral 2 in a bucket. Very complex. So 1H11 talks about dividends paid to an individual shareholder from a domestic corporation or a qualified foreign corp are going to be subject to lower rates, whatever the lower rate scheme is at the time. So this is where we tell you, by the way, these are your qualified foreign corporations. Most corporations qualify, but they give us a list. Chile is on that list because we have a new tax treaty. Finally, after like 15 years in Congress, it finally got ratified earlier this year, earlier 2023. Russia is off as of January 1st, 2023. I'm surprised no one has challenged that because that was, I think, just the Biden administration saying, nope, we're done. Nothing for Russia. We're sanctioning them. And I'm not sure how legal all of that was. Hungary, as we know, is out January 8th, 2023. Dividends after that date don't count. The IP PIN application is down. Also found the hard way, and then I looked it up. We needed a client to get a copy of their IP PIN, and of course, nope, couldn't get it. So that's supposed to come back up on January 8th for new subscribers. If they're looking to retrieve it, January 16th, it'll be up. So, by the way, that might be a bit of a hint as to when e-file is going to come back up, right? Probably around that date. I would love for you to join us on Ask the Tax Practice Pro speakers if you are not already a member on Facebook. So I hope everyone has a great new year. Again, this program will switch to 5 p.m. beginning next week. We'll be here all tax season. I hope to see you then.